And the recording is going good. Okay.
Uh-oh. Ay, 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 ay.
And to whoever I didn't say hello to already, Art, hello. Jonathan, hello. Roger, hello. Charles, hello. Matt Cohen. Matt, we're looking forward to your presentation in May. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. John, it's good to see you. Jenny Lynn is still working, although we see her twice.
I'm there
You're
on my
there.
phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, now it's suddenly working.
Oh,
Okay. I'll go from my desktop.
okay.
I have no idea. This is bizarre.
This is computeritis. Okay, we're ready to go. I'll talk to you when we're finished. I want to look forward to this presentation. There has to be an advantage to being president of this group.
I don't know what, hello?
Uh-oh.
They're showing his photos.
Are we off, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm the pace setter tonight. I'm going to try to make the 10 minutes and keep us moving through. But mainly a thanks to everybody, Stephen, for putting it together. And hi, Eileen. And thanks for putting me in such an elite company with all the 7 others tonight. And also Harvey, hello. I don't know if you remember me. I came by with Adam to your studio not long ago for the Halide project. So a little shout out to Harvey over there. And what I'm going to do tonight in 10 minutes, I've already used 30 seconds, is kind of go chronologically through 25 or more years of photography, from my early days doing street photography in New York to what I'm working on today. So it'll be from a number of series of work I've done over the last 2.5, almost 3 decades. So I'm ready when you are, Stephen. Thank you. I have my phone. I have my watch, so it should be okay. 40 seconds per. Doesn't give a lot of time. This is New York City, early 90s, when I was at ICP in New York. And I did what everybody does, just started shooting street photography with handheld black and white 35 millimeter camera. And I loved it. And I still retain many, many photographs from that era. This one in particular was very difficult to make. And street photography is a lot of tension because you're in someone's personal space, but that's often when it's really good. This one I have on my wall in my house, and I adore it to this day for the energy and the light that's in it. It's just a bus. It's a bus rider. I couldn't have been more than 3 feet away from her. Okay, next one. Not that many years later, I did a series. They're called Reclamations. This is one of 12 or 15. In New York City, I lived in Chelsea for a couple years, Upper West Side for a couple years, 6 years altogether. And the billboards would just blot out the sky. So this is kind of a little bit of digital subterfuge. I made a synthetic sky and then replaced it on the billboard that was there, kind of basically recapturing that experience for the viewer. Okay, next one. A handful of years later, this is my wife at the time, Allison, who would wad up hair, was constantly taking hair out of her head, wadding it up, absent-mindedly doing this while watching TV or reading a book. And then she would set set the objects on a couch edge or on a table edge. And after a time, I started to collect them. I know that sounds weird. And then photograph them. There's probably 48 in this series. And without seeing the whole series, they all look like insects, but very articulated, speciated insects. And the way they were photographed, they kind of look like line drawing as well. So a lot going on in that project. Okay. I got invited, a project coming out of Israel, Tel Aviv. Every child in Israel gets a plain notebook, literally a cardboard covered notebook with white pages inside. And they asked, I guess it was about 30, 35, 40 artists. Actually, I take it back, more like 100 across the country, to interpret or do an interpretation of the book. I made objects out of the white pages. So the tie on the collar you see is actually just curved up paper torn out of the notebook. And then I photographed using a Polaroid camera. I did fried eggs. I did straw. I did a cigar that had smoke rings coming off of it, that kind of stuff, but all just with the paper, the white paper. So 9, I had to do 9. I wish I could show them all. Okay. Ready to go on? Series Eileen knows very well. This is called Vessels of the Late Petroleum Age. Very briefly, a lot of people have seen this work, but they're recycled plastic bottles. There's 28 or 30 in this series. But I photographed them as though like I was an archaeologist from 2,000 years in the future, trying to figure out what these were, and got going down a very bad line of thinking or the wrong kind, and saw them as kind of ritual celebratory masks. Okay, next one. If you can, you zoom in on all this at all. This is actually a star trail photograph, and I do a lot of night photography teaching. If you could give me like a 1 or a 2x, if it's possible, what you're seeing is all the stars going by in all the colors. So it's about a 2-hour exposure taken with multiple exposures on a digital camera and then recomposited. And one of the darkest places I've ever been in terms of stargazing, up in central New York. And you'll see airplanes going through and all kinds of stuff. But what amazed me about all this was the color of the stars, the different color temperatures based on their age. Okay. Doing okay, roughly about okay. Now we're moving a little bit modern era. This is 4x5 work. I do a lot of 4x5 film and landscape. I'm actually teaching one this summer, a landscape class up at Peters Valley. Weekend in May. If you're interested, come check it out. It's about how to be specific in the landscape and make a statement about something, and not to be confused by all the options, sort of channel down and make a piece of art that way. This was the Wissahickon Trail with a friend one day. Okay. I also shoot architectural photography. This is one of the favorite ones I ever did. Waiting for the perfect light. The barn is actually lit with strobe, so that took some doing. I was on the phone talking to the person in the house to get the dimming of the lights right across the entire perimeter and the upstairs. Heavy orchestration, almost like setting up a movie shot or something cinematography, and then triggering those flashes. One of my favorite parts of this an accident, is there's a little light on in the barn, and you can actually see that through the gap in a couple pieces of the wood, which really took it to the extra excitement for me. All right, next one. Recent project at Princeton. I was hired to shoot some of the historic buildings. This is Prospect, the President's House technically, in the Prospect Garden. Again, 4x5 work. This is instant film. It's like Polaroid. It was a reinvented Polaroid film called like Type 55. This was called New 55. It gives you a negative and a positive. So again, the 4x5 camera getting to be really part of my aesthetic and part of my process. Okay. I think I have a couple minutes left, so Pandemic, gonna see some pandemic work. These are these little bubble pods. I don't know, again, if you can zoom in on any of those bubbles. People were having dinner inside plastic bubbles. And there was just something surreal about this whole period of time, the extra architecture at the periphery of the restaurants, those extra booths, the shacks, the little outbound areas where people could isolate but still be part of the experience. Okay, next one. You may recognize this from your own house. My kitchen got to be a disaster every 2 weeks, and I got to like the way it looked after doing nothing with a kitchen for 2 weeks. So this is like I call them COVID altarpieces. The wine bottle, the decaying banana and so forth, dishes, like a galactic number of dirty dishes. But I thought there was some real interest and appeal, all the detail and the excitement of sharpness front to back and all the things that 4x5 camera can do. All right, guess we're getting close. This is the last one. You may recognize some of these folks if you're in the plastic club. That is Cynthia Arkin and Michael Gwynn. It's Bonnie Shorsky and Zola Bryan, all very dear people to me in my living room. So I wanted to end on something personal, just the spirit of having people in your home. But I call this one The Last Supper. It reminded me of Da Vinci's Last Supper. So, or is it Michelangelo? Don't answer that. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Um,
So George, you're up. It's
yeah,
about-
thanks.
About 30 seconds per picture to talk about it, and then just say next, and I'll go to the next slide.
Okay, sure. I feel the same way as Rick. When I look at who's on this panel, it's like, I'm reminded of Admiral Jim Stockwell when he first made his first public appearance when he was running with Ross Perot for vice president. He's like, who am I? What am I doing here? So, but I'm George Mattis, and you'd have to ask Eileen what I'm doing here. But anyway, in trying to find 12 favorite pictures, I really couldn't do that. I don't have 12 favorite. I have 12 favorite for each kind of bunch of shots that I take. And just want to comment that when I think about favorite doesn't necessarily mean your best shots. It's just the ones that have personal meaning to you. And with some of the shots that are included in these 12, sort of proves the point that it's better to be lucky than good with taking some photographs. So just starting with the first one, if you want to start the first one, Steve. This is taken for the Best Athletic Association, which is a group that is formed to have basketball tournaments among at-risk youth. And to me, all these kids were really at risk in the schools that they attended, in the neighborhoods they lived in, and here they are playing as teams, playing really hard basketball. These kids are really good. And the meaning to me is the fact that there's somebody who cares enough about these kids to put these tournaments together. And so we can look at the next slide. This is the one where I think it's better to be lucky than good. When I took this picture, I didn't see what was going on in the right-hand side of the frame at all. I was going for the shot that was taking place in the left-hand side of the frame. When I got back to the house and put them on the computer and opened them up, I thought, holy cow, something can be going on right in front of you. But the fact that you're sort of not concentrating on it means you don't even see it. I didn't even see the fact that these guys were like right on top of each other and one was flying through the air. But this is one of my favorite shots, period. So let's go to the next slide. this is a series of pictures that I took when we took a trip to Kenya. And in Kenya, this was a mind-altering experience for me. The way the animals live together. You know, being a resident of the United States and having seen animals in a zoo, they're all separated, they all in cages. In real life, they're not like that. They're just all together and they learn how to survive. Some do, some don't. And so rather than bounce around for the different type of photographs that I have taken, I thought I'd dwell a little bit on Kenya, just a fraction of the photos that I took there, to illustrate the things there that are so interesting and that they occur when you're there. It means so much. You know, this animal, this wildebeest, you know, I don't know where he was before he wandered into this picture, but when you're there, this is the landscape that you see. Just a sea of savanna or open space with a tree here and there. And here comes this guy. I don't know if you can see in the photograph, there's a slight shadow that he's standing in. Decides to stand in, and I call this picture, "Here's looking at you," because he turns around and he looks at the vehicle that we were in. And I was lucky enough to, you know, grab that shot. The next series, this one here is the same thing that happened. It turns out that the guides in Kenya are trained to take you to settings that can make good photographs. They sort of look for them. So we were headed back to camp in the evening, and we're driving along, and then on the horizon, we suddenly came across this herd of animals as the sun was setting. And the guy that is silhouetted in the sun was over to the left somewhere, and he was grazing on grass as the sun was descending. And he kept on walking toward where the sun was headed. And I thought, is it ever possible that they're both going to get to the same place at the same time? And sure enough, they did. And I was lucky enough to be there to take this picture. And the sky itself is quite interesting because of the range of tones in it, particularly in black and white. So there's another lucky shot. The next series is, I really sometimes hesitate to show this, but when you talk about being lucky, I mean, the guides we were with talk about this as the honeymoon of a couple. And having been just driving by and having to come upon this scene just was mind-boggling to me that we happened to be there at this time. Let's take a look at the next slide. The guides began to tell us about this kind of ritual that the lions go through when they have a honeymoon, so to speak. It's not anything like what human beings, at least my imagination of what most human beings do when they go on a honeymoon. But there's a whole different sort of approach to, you know, making families. And they go through this series of sort of activities that cover the gamut of what kind of emotions they have. The next picture will show what is to them, I guess, an affectionate display. This guy's look like he's going to bite off the head of his mate, who is just sitting there thinking, well, this is the way things usually go. And then the last picture is the guy. I love this picture because it looks like he is, you know, in his glory, bragging about what he just took place. And she is lying on the ground, looking at him, thinking, like, you big galoof, as if it's all you. What about, the other person that was participating in this? So to me, this sequence is one of the most favorite sequences of any that we took while we were there. Next picture is the next sort of interesting thing that happened when we were there. We visited this village. Why do you think this person is so happy? This man has 6 wives and 22 children, and he is the elder in this village. And let's go to the next slide. This is one of his wives in front of one of the village huts that they all live in. These people are beautiful. I mean, look at her and the way she's dressed. They all wear these wild colors. They're just gorgeous. The next picture shows a group of them in their regalia doing something that they do to demonstrate their prowess, so to speak. This man is jumping straight up during music that's playing. Okay. Standing. Yeah, thank you, Steve. I was almost done with this one. They're just standing still, and he launches himself into the air. And what this means is, over time, they watch each other and the elder watches them. And one of the things they look for is who jumps the highest. This guy was jumping the highest of anybody. I mean, he didn't take a running start to do this. He's got to be like 3 feet off the ground, and he just stood there and shot straight up. And this is one of the ways that they determine who will become the elder over time, or the guy who becomes chief of the village, based on how high they jump. And then this last picture, I have to say, is my favorite all-time picture. Here's 2 people that love each other, two beings, let's say, that love each other. One immersed in one of her favorite pastimes, that's reading, and in this case, grading people's papers. And this cat that was willing to sit there forever and just be there. This is my wife and our cat, Buff, sitting in the dining room while Jane is reading whatever paper was submitted in her class. She teaches at Rutgers Camden. So those are my 12 favorite photographs among many photographs, and want to thank Eileen so much for, even thinking about inviting me. I haven't been a member of the Photographic Society that long. And the fact that she asked me to, show these pictures really surprised me. And, some of my best photo friends are in the Photographic Society, and some of them are sitting in the, in the gallery here now. And it's because of them that I was able to join. They said, why don't you come and take a look at one of the lectures? This is before COVID. This is when the lectures were still taking place upstairs in the Plastic Club. And gradually over time, I became interested, became a member, and I'm so happy I did. And like I said, thanks, Eileen, and thanks, Steve, for putting all this together.
Oh, hi, how you doing? It's Harvey Finkel. I want to thank Eileen and the Photo Society and Steve for having put this together and for inviting me to participate. I really appreciate it. The photographs I'm going to show are all of the immigrants that I had taken from 1982 to about 2020. And what you're looking at is the is what is now a book, but it was a book that produced all the photographs that were in the exhibit at Fleischer in this past November. There's close to 80 photographs of immigrants. So next, please. In 1982, I began to photograph the resettlement of the Indo-Chinese in Philadelphia, and it's the four groups who came: the Vietnamese, Cambodians, Laotians, and Hmong. And they came to Philadelphia, and most of them were settled in South Philadelphia. Next, and this is the preparation for. Okay, there's another photo. This is a photograph of a group of mushroom workers from Kennett Square who had been coming up for years. And this was photograph taken about 1994. And they were trying to organize a union. And they struggled for years to get permission or whatever it is to, yes, you can form a union. And believe it or not, that's just the beginning, because then they have to negotiate with the owners of the mushroom facilities. So what I liked about this picture is the faces. I like faces. I like groups of people where the faces show, and you can see the time. You can almost see the time they spent and the pain they spent doing this kind of work. Next, this is another group of these are the dreamers. These are the young children who came here before they were 16 years old, and could be sent back to the countries they came from, even though they may never have come here when they're children, infants, and so forth, and may never have even lived and know anything about that. But and then the program was set up to allow those who came when they were under 16 to stay if they had a job, if they were in school, not a job, but military, or what was the other thing? There's several things that I think one was school and military were the two things. And what she's wearing eventually, before she's wearing a shirt that signifies this program yet existed. All these people, all these young people dreamers who began to demonstrate, could be sent back to the countries they came from, where they may never have been since in the 14, 15 years. And they decided themselves to challenge the institution that was responsible, ICE, the Immigration and Custom Enforcement, which would capture them essentially and send them back. And they decided to come out in the open, and they put on these shirts, which unaccompanied, unafraid, and unapologetic. And this is the beginning of a demonstration in probably about 210, somewhere near the ICE office at 16th and Calla Hill. Next. This might have been reversed, these two photographs. This is a 1983. This is the Laotian who was the groom for the woman you saw in the first photograph. They're Laotians, and what they do, the men accompany the groom to the home or the house where the wedding is going to be performed. And again, I like the groups, I like the faces. And what they do, it's a little small row house in South Philadelphia. They lay all their rugs that they bring with them that signify the artistic creations that they make. And then they sort of have a ceremony where everybody's sitting on the floor. Before it starts, everybody gets 2 vials of alcohol, right? One is like a vodka or some, and the other is wine, and everybody has a double shot. This is at noontime, and they're really a lively group, and really the Laotians were really know how to party. Next, this is the same woman, young girl, who was we saw it with the T-shirt on, unapologetic, unafraid, and unauthorized. She is now in front, demonstrating in front of the ICE office. And this is civil affairs people coming to arrest the demonstrators. A whole group of young people were sitting out on these banners that they've laid out on the street. And I turned to a friend of mine. I said, "It seems to me they shouldn't be doing it because they're undocumented and they could be deported right away." But they were fearless. I said, "It seems to me the people who should be on the street there are the people who have status to stay here, who couldn't be deported." But these young people were fearless. And eventually they got what they wanted. At least they got temporarily what they wanted. We now have the DACA Act, which allows people under 16, who came here under 16 years old, to stay as long as, like I said before, as long as they had with military service or were in school. And next, this is a mosque in a row house in South Philadelphia. I like the image of the young woman surrounded by the elder women. I just like the design of the whole thing. And this is, again, it's a row house in South Philly, and they have a regular services there during the week. Next. This is a project I worked on. It was called Urban Mosaic. And it grew out of the fact that about 1995, 1999, in that area, we were all talking about globalization in terms of economics. But meanwhile, the whole world, it seemed to me, the United States had been globalized ethnically. You can go to any city in the United States, you go to Des Moines, Iowa, and you can get 5 different ethnic groups. You can go to St. Paul and get maybe 10 who are living there. And yet we were trying to deny them going to school, getting health care, and making them speak only the language, English, if they came to like in Arizona, if you went to the bureaucracy in Arizona, they could not speak to you in anything but English, even though 1/3 of the people in Arizona spoke Spanish. So my idea was to bring families together and highlight the fact, hey, we're globalized already. Let's get on with it. So I got 10 families in Philadelphia that I photographed. This is an Ethiopian family in their temple in would be Southwest Philadelphia. I got Peruvians, I got Peruvian family, I got a Sikh family, I got a Jamaican family, I got a Russian Jewish family that came over. Anyway, there were 10 families, and this was the cover of the catalog for the book, and not the catalog for the exhibit, which was shown at the Philadelphia Main Library of Philadelphia, and it was sponsored by the Honickman Foundation and some other foundations. Next. This is the public school in Philadelphia during a Mexican festival. It may have been made, Cinco de Mayo. And this is the school at 5th and Fitzwater. And they had a ceremony. Which most of the Latinx people kids who attended the school and their parents came, and they had a celebration of that holiday. I liked, again, the composition. I like that here isolating this young kid, and you know that the people framing him out are from his background. Next. This is a Cambodian temple, and it happens to be at 6th and Rittner in South Philadelphia. They built this wonderful temple, and this is a wall that's that houses one of the walls that houses the outside. It's on the outside of the temple. This is a young Cambodian girl reading. again, I like the textures of the whole thing, but if you ever get a chance, 6 in Rittner, take a ride down, take a look at that temple. And if you get there at a certain time or a holiday, they'll feed you, and the food's wonderful. Next. This is a Peruvian celebration up in North Philadelphia. It was one of the groups that I photographed were Peruvians. And this is, I can't recall what the religious ceremony is, but this is what it is. And it's a parade that takes place in North Philadelphia with all kinds of sort of floats and artistic work and so forth. I like the posture of the guys who are carrying the float, that particular float. Next. This is a second group. I photograph groups that are socially active. This is a group of mostly Mexicans. Other people from Latin America belong to the organization. It's called Juntos. They basically serve people in South Philadelphia. And this is a gathering that they had at the Italian market, which the lower half of the Italian market, which is above Pat's and Stina and Gino's. And if you go to Washington Avenue, that one block is basically all Mexican restaurants, record stores, and so forth. And some really good restaurants there. Okay. But Juntos serves, was originally a service organization that helped Mexicans who came here with sending remissions back to their country, dealing with landlords, dealing with electric bills, dealing with lots of different problems they may have had, and eventually became a much more feet on the ground organizing group as it is today, and much younger today. Next. What I said before is that they're here, and and they're with us. And what it is, when you, especially with the younger people, they're Americanized. I mean, here's 2 Ethiopian kids with their 60 sweatshirts, but these are from the urban program that I was telling you about. This is an Ethiopian group of kids. But like I said, the kids become acculturated very quickly, and also creates sort of an imbalance in the family dynamics. The kids seem to gain more power than it used to be. Next. This is a group of Mexican dancers who every winter solstice gather at William Treaty Park, which I think was where William Penn signed his treaty with the Native Americans. And they come here and they celebrate the winter solstice by dancing. And meanwhile, it's freezing out, and they start about 6 in the morning. It's cold and free out. And what you see is the bridge behind the Ben Franklin Bridge. Again, I sort of like the feathers and the composition. Next. This is not me. This is Morris Klein. I guess I'm done. Is that it? What I'd like to say is thanks to Eileen and to Stephen. And if anybody wants a catalog, what you saw in the first image, please email me and I'll find a way to get it to you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, that indeed is me. And I found a good photographer taking the shot, me, at any rate. Okay, so we can move on to here we go. All right, so I've basically been into photography for maybe a half a century, but I didn't go back that far. I started, this show starts from maybe about 20 years worth. Well, when I actually started exhibiting in the local clubs around here, the Sketch Club and the Plastic Club, and then of course the Photo Society. And This one was, like maybe taken in maybe 2003. And what it was is I got roped into taking photographs for the annual Hero Scholarship Thrill Show. The guy who was running it was a friend of mine. And so I took this shot and I put it in a show, and I actually won a prize for that. Wasn't expecting that. I mean, I took more than that one picture, but I think I'll start off with, and obviously this was in digital days, before I, after I gave up on film cameras. So at any rate, we can go to next. Okay, and so I would wander Center City, and I lived around the corner from the Academy of Music, but in walking around the city trying to take shots, I found very few people on the streets in some of the places I went. So I decided to take a tripod. And what I did was I used myself as a model. So I set up the tripod. So I got a picture of me taking a picture of me across from the Academy of Music. And I played around with that for a while until I got bored with it. And and I found other subjects that didn't require a lot of people. Next. This was, up, looking down on the waterworks, and I saw a lovely couple sitting there and admiring the waterworks, and I got a shot of that. Didn't win a prize though. All right, next. This was a trip down the shore, and just everything looked really good to me. With the sky and the ocean coming in, and so I got a few others from some of my travels, but most of my photos tend to be Philadelphia because I have a good way of getting around Philly. Okay, next. I see now here I'm in Chinatown, and I see this got cropped somewhat, but here's the same technique. I've got me calling my me while I'm, my other two me's are already here, and the me crossing the street is running late. So, eventually I got that stuff out of my system, but it gave me a chance to play around with Photoshop. And so I sort of Photoshopped this one to death a bit. Next. This was visiting some friends down in Virginia, Chickatee Island, known for its ponies. And this pony decided to pose for me, so I took a picture of it. And I didn't have to send it any prints though. Okay, next. This was a trip that Eileen and I took with some other people to the Galapagos, and we bounced around the various animal islands and got a chance to shoot some of the wildlife with cameras, not guns. And so so I got a sea lion with her cub, and we had a good time. Next. Back in Philadelphia and across from Boathouse Row, which I understand is going dark for the next 8 months while they redo the lighting system. But this isn't daylight, so it doesn't matter. Okay, next. All right, this one was another prize winner. And this was, the theme was red, white, and green. And obviously the love sculpture is not green, but to get the red, white, and green thing, I sort of had to go there when no one was looking and paint love green, and got away with it. No, I didn't actually paint it. Well, in Photoshop. All right, next. And this was taken from the observatory area at Liberty Place too. And you get a nice shot of the city. And this is where I did a little photoshopping to make the city look a little prettier. And next, there was a big street festival on Broad Street, and the Kimmel Center had something going on inside. There's kind of a time tunnel type thing. So I got a shot of that. It was a little bit more interesting than what they had on Broad Street. And then last but not least, next. And so I believe the Plastic Club had a show recently about space. And I happened to be coming home from Washington Square. And as I had to cross the street because they were doing some work here, I saw 3 workmen actually creating space. So I decided to call this Space Force. Didn't win a prize though. And that sums it up. That's my last 20 years of photography.
Okay. Good afternoon and evening, everyone. I'm Walter Lewis. I'd like to thank both Eileen and Stephen. I joined, I'm a really new member. I joined the club because my club that I belonged to for the last 15 years became disbanded because of COVID. So if you want to go to the first picture, Steve, I'll be deeply appreciative. So one of the things I always believe in, just wherever I am, just take a picture of something that seems fascinating. And this is a picture of when I started to get back into photography back in 2005. I had gone on a cruise, and this were on the Mediterranean. So I was going upstairs early in the morning just to get a shot of the sunrise. And I came across this scene. I just loved the way the curve was of the running part of the track on the deck. So this was just an image I really just kind of attracted to. Next shot. This is kind of cropped a little bit more than I wanted, but I had gone to the DMV in, because I live in New Jersey, and the DMV I was going to was in Salem County. So I was going down the road and I saw this scene of this kind of haze and cornfield and this spot, and the way it just kind of drifted your eye off to the side and it just made your eye follow towards the end. So I kind of liked this shot. Next shot, please. This is from the trip that we had to the Naval Yard. I just liked the way this building just curved, but also just liked how the mirroring of the blue sky and how blue it was. So it was just the way it just led your eye down the whole face of the building. Next picture, please. Again, I had gone up to New York on a little of a trip just to kind of putz around, and my club at that time was working on a theme of reflections. So I saw this building just reflecting light off the other building, and I left the traffic light in because of the way it kind of gave a perspective that, you know, it was a tall building. So it's just something I kind of liked. Next picture, please. Again, this is another cruise that I just came from. This was back in 2018. We had gone to Alaska and we're coming back from Glacier Bay Park. And I just loved the way the light was casting, illuminating the snow caps of the mountains, but also how it just shone a really nice strong light on the ocean, but also the way the texture of the sky. The odd thing about this whole picture is that it's really a color picture, but everything was in stark, almost black and white. So there's no color from what I could tell. So I just love this picture. It's just one of my favorites. Next picture, please. I gone to Tuckerton Seaport, and I was just putzing around with my photography group back in 2009. And I ran across this old engine block and it was rusting. And it was just the way the texture was, the color, with the background of the plants that were there. It just was really different. So I just thought that was just an interesting picture to take a picture of. Next picture. This is one of my real favorites. So I'd gone to Grand Canyon in 2012. And the reason I had gone there is one, I had just recently been diagnosed with prostate cancer. So were things I wanted to do and places I wanted to see. And it was on my bucket list. So it was a day trip to the Grand Canyon of Las Vegas. And I just love the vastness of the Grand Canyon, but also the scale of seeing the people, looking over the ridge. It's just one of my favorite images I loved. Next picture, please. So another photography group I had, we were doing a model shoot, and this is one of the models that came out. And I just liked the way the lighting was, we had done, and I just loved the movement of her just looking and her stance. Next picture. I had a colleague of mine who asked me to take some pictures of her daughters. And this is just a couple of pictures I took of them. They're now teenagers, but it was just the way they were so playful, loved the color, loved the way the texture of their ribbons and the texture in their clothes. It just kind of popped. And even the blankets actually popped too as well. Next picture, please. I was on 9th Street, again, right after I had just got my first digital camera, and I just wanted to just putz around, and I ran across this guy with his daughter, and he was just looking at me, and I said, "Do you mind me taking a picture of you?" And he said he didn't care, so I took a picture of him. So I just really liked this, the way she looked, and he was just so beaming and having his daughter by his side. Next picture. Again, this is in Cumberland County. They were having a powwow for this Native American group, and I was just love the way the feathers were and the colors. They were just kind of really intense look that this Native American had in terms of what he was doing for this event. Next picture. And this is my last one. Again, I was back on 9th Street. And I just loved it because I love the entrepreneurial spirit of this gentleman, John, as he was doing grocery delivery for 9th Street. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to show my images. I really appreciate that.
Hey everyone, so I'm John Bose, and yeah, I have some pictures. I tried to make a mix of pictures that kind of a little bit older and maybe some that are a little bit more recent. I haven't had as much time to do photography as I'd like. I got 2 little kids. I'm going to school at night. I work full time, so it's tough to find time. But yeah, hopefully there's a little bit more time in the future, and we can see some of those at some point. So let's go to the first one. So these pictures, I didn't really put them in any particular order, but this one was one that I did for a class that I took on color photography. This was up in New York, and I was just kind of walking around, and there is a whole row of these little shops and tents set up on this one street, and I was kind of walking through and just saw these people. I love the colors. I love kind of the interaction there between the 2 people, and there's the gentleman in the background there, and yeah, I just kind of like the way that this one came out with all the yeah, all the interesting colors and textures and shapes and everything. Next, please. This was one that I did. This is an older one. This was in Chicago. My sister was living out there for a while, and I went out to visit her, and it was kind of in the evening. We were just walking around. She was showing me around the town a little bit. And there's this park on the lake, and it was a really foggy day as the, it was after dusk, the sun had set, and I just love fog for some reason. I love taking pictures when the weather's bad, and I shot this one, and I just really liked the way, you have kind of the shape silhouetted, you have the texture of the tree, and just sort of that, really kind of ominous feel to it. There's no people. It's almost just like a vacant type of shot. There's no leaves on the tree. It's just kind of, yeah, just like this absence there. Next, please. This was a picture I took probably close to 10 years ago now. This is a little bit of an older one for me. This was outside of 30th Street Station. I was taking a class at Drexel, and so I was getting off the train and heading down to Drexel's campus. There's this bike locked up on some scaffolding right outside, and yeah, there's just something about it. I like the kind of the lines and the shadows and the reflection. It was kind of abstract with the shapes, and I never really knew what to do with this picture. So it was just kind of sitting around for a bit, and then I thought this would be a good one to share because, again, I never really did anything with it, but I do like the way the lines and the shadows are. Next, please. This picture is one, again, I did this one for a class in black and white photography. This is down in Union Station in Washington, D.C. And this was one of the kind of the first pictures I took as I was getting into photography that I saw, or I guess I took this picture, and it sort of made me see what I could do with a camera a little bit. Kind of looking back at it now, there's maybe some things I might do a little bit differently with the framing, but I really like it. It's certainly sentimental for me, and I just love the way the light's coming through those windows. You have sort of a reflection off the floor and the silhouettes and the shadows. And yeah, this is just always one of my favorite pictures. I think it's one of my first ones that I really liked that I did. Next, please. This one I shot at Longwood Gardens. This was in the conservatory. I'm sure there's most of you are familiar with Longwood, and you can kind of just go there and everything's beautiful, right? So it's really easy to get some really nice shots. And sometimes I like to go there just when I want to take maybe some pressure off of my photography. I just want to go and just have a little bit of fun. And I always know I can get something that I'm happy with. And at the same time, Longwood, it's sort of one of these places that is a little bit different every time you go there. So, even though I've been to the conservatory a bunch of times, just the way the light was coming in this time, and they had just watered some of the plants so that the floor was wet. And I love the reflections. I love kind of the textures of the floor panels. And, again, even though I've been there a bunch of times, it's just something that's brand new. Yeah, every time you go there, you can see something new. Next. This is another one I did for that color photography class from the first one. So again, this is in New York City. I was just kind of walking around. I think the prompt for this assignment was kind of about tableau scenes. So I just kind of saw these two people, just buying an ice cream. That they clearly were doing some shopping in New York, and there was just something about this I liked. There's all the colors in the truck, and the two people, and the bag, and that the star kind of stands out. But then at the same time, there's a sort of this guy in the truck that's kind of lingering there, like just kind of looming with the ice cream cone. And of course, it's a completely innocuous situation, but somehow for me, the way I see him just holding that ice cream cone. You can't see his face. It's just sort of this mystery of, it just adds like a little bit of edge to to this very plain picture. Next, please. This is one. This is just one I took fairly recently. We got some snow. I mean, obviously it wasn't this winter, but there's a park a few blocks from my house, less than a 5-minute walk. And I went after work, and yeah, just shot a few pictures. And again, this is just one that I like. It's just sort of empty, and I don't know if to me, when I go out in a fresh snow, it's always sort of quiet. It's at night, so there's kind of an emptiness, and I feel like this shot kind of captures that, sort of peacefulness, quietness. Again, there's almost like a void in this picture. Next. This is a more recent one I did. This was actually last summer. So, when I first got into photography, I got into photography with a old Minolta 35mm camera from the 80s that I kind of inherited from my wife's grandfather when he passed away. And I really fell in love with film. And then I kind of got into digital. So most of my pictures were digital, but more recently I've been getting back into film, and I got a 4x5 view camera, a large format, and this was one of the first pictures I took with that. I just kind of took it to the park. I was there with, this is my mom and my son, and we just kind of went for a family. They said, hey, I'll bring this camera, practice a little bit, and I just kind of course, if you use the camera like that, it takes a while to set up all your shots. So, my kid was being really patient. My mom was being really, really good, just kind of sitting. And this was right down in Essington, right on the river. Yeah, I just like the way it came out, and just sort of that magic of film that is nice to get back to. And of course, with the 4x5, it's so crisp and clear, and you have so much control. Next. This is another one that I took with those the 4x5 camera. The other thing that's interesting with this camera is it's actually a 3D printed camera. I have a 3D printer, and there's a company that basically designed this camera. It's called the Standard 4x5, and I just bought the models from them, the 3D CAD models for $20, and I printed all the parts and put it together. So this was one of the test shots. I developed the film myself, which was one of the first times I've done that. So I was kind of happy to see that it actually came out. And of course, with film, you never really know what you're getting till you look at it. And I just like the way that this you kind of have that foreground. It's not a real complicated picture, but it's just, for me, it's kind of special just because it's one of those first ones with my large format camera. Next. This is another one with my large format camera. All these were shot with Ilford FP4 film, which I really like. Yeah, this is right down by the Commodore Barry Bridge, right by the soccer stadium. That's kind of one of my favorite places to go. It's kind of near my house, and again, it's one of those things where every time I go there, it's a little bit different. So I could sort of take the same picture in the same spot, multiple times and just get something slightly different. But yeah, I just kind of like the way this came out with the, kind of the benches and the shapes in the foreground. And then of course that the massive bridge just kind of fading off into the distance into New Jersey. Next. Same thing. This was my 4x5 camera, down on kind of the other side of the bridge, or I guess, still from the Pennsylvania side, but there's these two fishermen down there on this little deck. And, again, it kind of gives a little bit of scale to just how big and not just the bridge, but the river and, just those tiny little people there. Next. Yeah, this is another one of the bridge, one of my favorite subjects. So it's, this one kind of just made me appreciate sort of the way that the hard lines and the textures of the bridge next to the soft tree, and again, just kind of has a little bit of a difference between the two of the soft shapes and the hard shapes. Next. And that's it. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks to the club and Eileen, and appreciate seeing everybody's pictures, and yeah, thanks.
Is John here? I can't bring up the list of participants without the potential of screwing up the presentation, so I can't tell if he's here or not.
It doesn't look like he's here.
No, it doesn't look like John is here, although wait. I made every possible effort of sending him all the login and everything. I did my part, and I'm sure he has a good excuse, but let's just go ahead and show his work, because it's under my impression that he was not going to comment on his pictures.
So I'm going to comment because I put this together. I have a peek of everybody's pictures. John took an ordinary subject, which is fruit, and just blew me away with his picture. So I'm just going to go through sort of like slowly and just be impressed, as I was looking at John's impressive take on an ordinary subject. And this concludes John's pictures, which, as I said, I was blown away and very impressed with what I saw. Is Rob here?
It doesn't look like he's here either.
Yeah, I didn't see his name.
So I believe this is the last one. So let me just go through slowly through his pictures, which again, no one has disappointed me in all the pictures I've seen tonight. So I'm sure you'll be impressed with Rob's as well. And we have now made it through all the pictures for tonight.
Stephen, thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you. 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 To the people that presented tonight, to George and Harvey and Morris and Walter and Jonathan and Rick, and to see the pictures that were submitted by John and Rob as well. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I just hope that everyone has left this presentation with something new, some new idea, some new way to look at photography, some new idea, and especially what Jonathan had said about making, I hope you all caught it. He said it very quickly about making a 4x5 camera with a 3D printer. Wow, there were no questions. There were no, oh boy, wow. I mean, we've known that people will use 3D printers for all sorts of things, you know, all sorts of illegal type things. But to be able to make a 4x5 camera, it is just that it's just absolutely amazing. So I don't know about anybody else, but I was super impressed with the work, with the presenters, with the information that me personally am walking away from this meeting with. And I would just, and a lot of the pictures reminded me of an Ansel Adams quote. And what he said was, a good photograph is knowing where to stand. And I'm going to leave you with that happy thought. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe, enjoy spring, stay healthy. And next month, we've got a new slide if Adam is still ready to put it up there. New slide, Adam, the end slide. Save the date. Hurry up. Save the date. Save the date. Save the date. Save the date. Save the date, April 18th, David Rodstein, and we are so looking forward to his work as well. So just everything between now and you got to get your taxes done. I'm sure everybody's in a tizzy over the tax thing. We'll see you next month. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And good night and very, very sweet photographic dreams. Goodbye.
All right, thanks,
Good
everyone.
night. Thank you.
Well.
Bye-bye.